24th. And I am joined by two of the members, so we have a quorum. Thank you for being here on time as well and joining us this morning. Councilmember Mike Bonnet, Councilmember Mitch O'Farrell. Good morning. Thank you. With that, we're going to go ahead and open it up for general public comment cards so we can, for those folks from the public that came in to speak this morning. And we, at this point, have one card. Leah Renee, or Renee? Good morning.
Good morning. I didn't expect to be first.
Welcome. Absolutely.
So, hi. I'm here to formally introduce myself. I don't know you.
Have a seat.
Oh, me?
Have a seat. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Be comfortable.
Well, first time. So, hi. My name is Leah Renee, and I'm here to bring something to your attention that I think concerns everybody in the room, and I'm going to try and make it really brief. Do I have 1 minute, right? Okay. I own property in Pacific Palisades Bluffs. I'm sure you guys all know about it. It's in the high fire hazard severity zone. It's in a seismic earthquake zone. It's had 26 landslides, and it's part of your general plan emergency critical route. And the Department of Building and Safety is not enforcing codes, nor are they collecting the correct property taxes. The county assessor's office, I've gone to them. It's been a year and a half. I work 20 hours a day, every day. I've spoken to every single person in this city and in this county, and I need help. My community needs help. Every homeowner in my neighborhood, we have 30,000 pieces of property, and we're all in the high fire hazard severity zone, and they're not even doing fire-rated building codes. And they're, the Berkeley Hills fires, as you all know, spread 800 houses in 1 hour. We had a fireman die. And Los Angeles Supreme Court Judge Perry said it was partly the fault of the Department of Building and Safety. It is on top of the LA Times almost every day. Please tell me who to go to get help. I have 35 books if anybody wants one. Mike Bonin, you have my contact information. You have all the contact, so I'd appreciate knowing where to go to, who's going to help us. And I've outlined all the problems. There are other problems, but here it is all highlighted. Here's all your codes. Here's all your backup.
Okay, thank you very much.
May I just, I'd like to, where's John from my staff? Oh, John right here is staffing me at this committee, but we're going to put you in touch with Norman Culla of my staff.
Is Norman here?
No.
He knows me.
He
works a year and a half ago and brought this attention to him a year and a half, and it's been every day since.
Okay, so we'll get you together.
Great.
I'm glad you brought this to our attention.
Okay.
It gives me an opportunity to say thank you to LAFD for the work they and the other first responders did a week and a half ago in making sure that we didn't lose 30 homes.
You did an excellent job. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other general public comment cards, that'll conclude general public comment for the meeting. Okay, and we have a number of items that I'd like to call on consent, unless any of my colleagues want to call them special. Those will be items 1, Port Security Grant, 2, the FEMA Urban Search and Rescue Grant, 3 is the 11 UASI reappropriation, and 4, and then 5 is the 11 UASI grant modification, and I believe that has CAO report.
It does.
Well,
good morning, John White, City Clerk. Item 5 also has a technical amendment to recommendation 1D of the CAO report.
Okay, so that'll be approved without objection on the technical recommendation. On 6, the dispute resolution grant acceptance. 7 is the time grant acceptance. 9 is the LoJack contract. It's a sole source, but it has no, according to the CAO report, financial impact, basically in kind to support their service as well. 10, revised filing guidelines. 11 is the donation, and I'd like to also thank the Police Foundation for their generous contribution and support in offering that donation of less than lethal. We'll go to 12 as well, LAPD spa account. So those will be on consent without objection, and that didn't clear the room. So everybody's here on other items. With that, we'll have 3, 8, and 1. And 1, I believe, is on a special. Is there a time for that special, or is it at any time?
It's, I think, 4 minutes away. Special starts at 8:45.
8:45. Okay, so on item 1, we'll start that at 8:45. And we'll go ahead and go then to item 3.
Item 3. See a report relative to an agreement with the City of San Fernando for the LAFD to provide comprehensive fire and emergency medical services within its jurisdictional limits for a period of 5 years, retroactive from July 1st, 2012 through June 30, 2017.
Okay, I believe we're going to continue that in committee. I did have one question on that before it comes back, and they're going to look at some other elements, but my question is if that, because I wasn't sure if that actually it had already gone to the Fire Commission or not. Does anybody know?
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning, Council. Can you repeat your question again, sir?
It had item 3 on the report that is coming to this committee. Has that yet gone to the Fire Commission?
It did, but as we discussed with your office, once we work some more, we're going to send it back through with changes.
Okay, I didn't see the note here. Do you know when that actually went through the Fire Commission?
I want to say about 3 or 4 months ago.
3 or 4 months ago. Okay. And then with any of the modifications, that'll go back through Commission first and then come back here?
Yes.
So we'll hold it here and you'll let us know when you're ready.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your support and help on that. Appreciate that. So we'll continue that item. Number 8.
Item 8, Board of Police Commissioners report relative to the LAPD issuing a request for proposals for the operation, towing, and storage services at 16 official police garages and the Central Area Heavy Duty Garage.
Good morning, committee members. Richard T. Fank, Executive Director of the Board of Police Commissioners. I am joined by Lieutenant Chris Waters, a Commanding Officer of Commission Investigation Division, which oversees the contracts, and Detective 3 Ben Jones, who is the OPG Coordinator. Before you is a draft of a RFP that we would like to issue for 16 contracts for OPG services for 16 service areas and 1 for central heavy-duty tow for the central area of the city. The reason we are bringing this to you as one package for the 16 service areas plus the heavy duty is the contracts are the same. We would just modify the contract for the date due, et cetera, to tailor it for the individual release. This would save us coming back to council 16 different times for the same RFP. So as we have in our cover sheet, we've outlined when the contract currently ends and when we would propose to release the RFP so we could have a contract in place by the time the contract ends. The product is, I think, well done by our staff. We did about a year and a half ago issue a contract RFP for Service Area 4. And when we did that, we did a few things that we learned from. One was we did not have a specified appeal process in the RFP. This time we do have that process outlined in the RFP, and the way that will work is that when we do select a vendor that we will recommend to the Board of Police Commissioners, all the vendors will be notified who submitted an RFP, given appropriate time to come in and have a protest hearing, so we can have the protest hearing prior to it going to the Board of Police Commissioners for an award. They would also obviously have their time to speak before the Commission again, and as it worked its way through the legislative process with your committee and City Council. We're happy to answer any questions you might have, and specifically to the background of the OPGs or anything else you might have.
What's different on this RFP than is different on the previous ones?
Basically,
Besides what you just talked about.
that pretty much is it. There's a little bit different, and I'll let Ben Jones talk about this specifically since he worked with the city attorney to put that together. So, Detective Jones?
couple things that were added were some additional safeguards for the process. All the employees involved now have to do a Form 700 like I do, but everyone that works on the process. Additionally, there's a confidentiality agreement that no person at any level in the process can discuss it or talk about it with anyone else other than at the award or an open committee. As far as the...
Wait, walk me through that.
Well, basically what's going to happen is the detectives assigned to the Commission Investigation Division will initially vet the contracts, the RFPs, and they'll go out and verify the information. They won't make any recommendation, but they'll go vet them and put the information there. From that process, it'll go to a selection committee appointed by the Police Commission, which will be a member from the CAO's office, a member of the Department of Transportation, and a member of the Police Department. None of the detectives or NCID. They'll be senior civilian staffers. Once they make a recommendation, that will be sent to the Executive Director of the Board of Police Commissioners, who, if he concurs, will forward it to the Board of Police Commissioners. If they concur, they will forward it to this body, and if this body concurs, to the full City Council and Mayor for approval. And throughout that entire process, everyone involved in it's on a confidentiality agreement that the only place they can talk about it is in doing staff work and here are one of those bodies.
Okay, so no ex parte communications whatsoever?
No. That was an additional thing that was added to the contract, that if any of the vendors or proposers attempt to contact any person in that process, they'll be disqualified.
And do the proposers, as well as the staff that are working on this, sign that confidentiality agreement? I mean, it's part of it, but do they actually sign an acknowledgement of that?
When they submit their proposal, they must acknowledge that they agree to the terms of the RFP. And individual staffers, that will be, they'll sign that, and that will go into their personnel package. And those documents have been prepared by the contract attorneys at the City Attorney's Office.
Excellent. Well, that's certainly different.
And we will do another piece, just as we did last time, to protect the integrity of the process. All of the interviews that are done as a individual proposer is vetted will all be tape recorded. They'll be transcribed, so there can be no, well, that was a misunderstanding, I didn't say that, etc. So we have all of that documentation. We understand the interest in these contracts. We understand that there could be a half a dozen to a dozen respondents to each one of the 16 RFPs, some for multiple OPG service areas they may apply for if they're not successful in one. So we want to have the integrity of the process, so no one can challenge the integrity of Detective Jones and our officers as they go through the process of vetting or through the process by the committee that will review them and make a recommendation to me.
Does that extend to anybody and everyone who might be, and their staff, voting on the approvals as well? So that would be the actual commissioners, staff, elected officials, their staff. Walk me through that.
It extends only to the commissioners. The commissioners have specific ethics rules that they cannot take place in any discussions related to any item that comes before them. As to council members and your staff, that's totally separate from the process.
But that could be something that could be perhaps added to the RFP, that there aren't those ex parte communications, or not?
Well, the commissioner's prohibition from discussing or participating is in the ad code and the municipal code, and that's where that comes from. If for us to exclude council staff, I think that would have to be done by the council itself.
I'd have to look at the language of the, I'm sorry, Assistant City Attorney Deborah Gonzalez, I'd have to look at the language of the request for proposal again. Did the language in it only prohibit proposers from speaking to commission staff and persons involved in the selection committee? Or did it contain broader language which would prohibit them from contacting anyone who might have a decision-making role, which would, of course, be all 15 council members?
Correct. And
So
the mayor's,
I
the mayor's staff.
don't recall now the language. If it does right now, the language simply prohibits them from contacting commission members and commission staff and selection committee members.
If we can look at that, when's this due to come to council?
We would like to get it to council as soon as possible, sir, because we can get this out. We have our first central area RFP is April expires. I think
Perhaps-
Detective Jones is taking something down to the city attorney on that piece.
And perhaps, council member, we can answer that question for you in council.
Great. Okay. And if you can
To
come back
clarify-
prior to that. Do we have a set date for council on this item yet?
I don't know.
No, we don't.
Okay.
Now, if you like.
Well, if we can go ahead and try to get it scheduled for council as soon as possible.
Yes, sir.
And if you can get back to my office with the answer, that would be great. And one of the reasons I bring this up is the same reason that you've brought this into the system. Since these are extremely desirable, and it's a good partnership with the City of Los Angeles and public safety, that they oftentimes get incredibly politicized as well. And you've got a lot of incredible partners with the City of Los Angeles that have been lifelong extensions of public safety family, quite frankly, providing that service. And a lot of competitors that may come in and, well, we've seen what's happened in many years in the past, so which is why you're doing what you're doing.
Right.
So I'm just trying to look at all the other open issues that could protect the integrity of this process as well, which is exactly why, under the spirit of which you proposed this change, has come. So with that, if we could look at that. That would be
I would just point the members out to, it's section 48.2, it's on page 39 of 161. Prohibition of communication during RFP evaluation period is the specific area that we highlighted relevant to commission and our staff. We did not include council, but that would be that we would defer to the city attorney for their counsel on how to handle that.
Although the language wouldn't exclude necessarily council members, it says proposers shall not initiate communication in any manner with city personnel in regard to this RFP. Question would, and then it has in parentheses including commissioners. Question would be, would the intent be to include city council members or their staff? Certainly their staff are city personnel. The city council members are elected officials. Do we make that distinction? Let me go back and speak with the contract attorney, and we can clarify that for the council, and the council can tell us.
Because looking ahead on this as well, I can see where you might have a proposer who's being challenged, and an awarded proposer is being challenged, and somebody's suggesting that, well, they did contact city personnel.
Right.
And that's going to come up, so better to get that.
Let's clarify that.
Clarification. That would be terrific. Okay. Fantastic.
Very good.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And do we have some of these that are operating on extended contracts right now?
No, sir.
Okay. Great. Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you for all your hard work. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do you want to take an action on that, Councilman?
So we'll go ahead and approve that without objection. That'll be the order.
Yes, sir. Thank you. That completes your regular agenda. Did you want to adjourn the regular meeting and convene your special meeting?
Yes, please. We'll go ahead and, with the special meeting then, open that up. And we have one item, I believe, item 1.
Item 1, LAFD and Personnel Department report relative to the LAFD staffing imbalance and firefighter hiring and attrition pursuant to motion, Bonin, O'Farrell.
And we have one card on this, Frank Lima. Let me ask Frank. There he is. Here, my peripheral vision. Did you want to speak first, or did you want to speak after the presentation?
I'd like to speak both.
We could do a minute on each end. You want to do both?
I can go first.
Okay.
Morning, Chairman Englander, honorable committee members. My name's Frank Lima, and I'm honored to serve as the president of United Firefighters of Los Angeles City. Can't possibly touch on all the points that I would like to in this 2-minute time frame, but there's a lot of lack of integrity and a deceptive report that's going to be in front of you. Let me first thank Council Members Bonin and O'Farrell for putting forth this motion to help resurrect our fire department. We haven't hired a single firefighter in 5 years, and despite what this report says, we knew that the staffing shortage was coming with the drop enrollment and attrition, and we did not prepare well enough for this day. I want to point out that it's ludicrous to say that drill tower 81 needed nearly 5 years to be ready to accommodate a new recruit class. This is simply not true. If hiring firefighters were a priority, which it was not, we would have had the drill tower ready long ago. The report says we have two options for the next fiscal year, to go with 5 recruit classes or go with 3 recruit classes. I'm here to say that we have no choice. We need to go with 5 recruit classes, and we need to reopen Drill Tower 40. We also need to fund the personnel department with whatever they need to find and process our new recruits. We are in a crisis, and all excuses need to be removed. In regards to the drop program is not an excuse that we're in this situation, because the drop benefits the employer. In addition to retaining employees, cost neutrality to the city, it aids recruitment, it's essentially eliminated disability pensions, but it should be a manager's dream, because it helps employers anticipate future staffing needs. Somebody fell asleep at the switch here. UFLAC has made several efforts to hire, shot down by the CAO and LAFD management over and over. We are in a crisis. We need to do everything possible to bring in additional recruits, and I want to thank the members of the committee for your concern regarding hiring new members in our department, and I ask you to continue to fight to ensure that we have the bodies that we need to be fully staffed as we begin to rebuild our fire department. Thank you.
Okay, no, thank you very much. And if I can ask the department to come up as well. No other general or public comment cards on this, so I'll close the public comment for this item as well. And then we'll go ahead and have staff come up. Thank you very much.
Mr. Hayes, Mr. Hayes, Mr. Hayes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm going to go ahead and open it up, if I could, to the mover of the motion
Okay.
for discussion, since you were the author.
Thank you, Mr. Engler. A week and a half ago, I had my nightmare scenario. It could have been a lot worse, but it was a brush fire in the northern part of my district on a red flag day, a couple years after the department and that area of my district suffered severe cuts in service. We got lucky that the fire was close to PCH and was relatively accessible. And we got lucky that the winds were blowing in the right direction. Otherwise, we would have lost 30 homes on top of the bluffs. The cuts that we have endured over the past few years have been harsh, and the department has suffered considerably. What concerns me, and the reason we put in this motion, is that I think things are actually a lot worse than we have been told, and I think that the department knew that earlier when the cuts were sold to this council, and if they didn't, they certainly should have. I appreciate the report that you've done, but I had quite a few questions. When these cuts were sold in 2011 to the council, there was an understanding that overtime would be needed to fill some vacancies. And that was premised upon the idea that using overtime would be less costly than hiring new firefighters. My understanding is that's no longer the case. When did we hit that point, and when did that change? When did we hit the point where it would have been cheaper to be hiring than using overtime?
June Gibson with the Fire Department. Councilman, you're asking obviously very legitimate questions. Unfortunately, I was not with the department at the time that what you are referencing with respect to the budget. The CAO's office is here. It seems to me that that issue would be most appropriately responded to by the CAO. The decision to reduce the budget by $40 million in 11-12 certainly was a recommendation that was put forth by the CAO's office. with the notion that by eliminating a certain number of positions and allowing those positions to be placed into a hiring pool would result in constant staffing overtime savings. And you are correct that there were many factors subsequent to that that were not anticipated, which places the department in the situation that we're in now. As recounted in the report, what was not included in the projection was the additional positions that were funded in the budget, which totals about 25. Most significantly, what was not projected was the implementation of the ambulance augmentation plan, which went into effect in May of 2013. That resulted in the need to fill an additional 66 positions that certainly were not anticipated when the discussion regarding the need to start hiring with 2 drill towers was discussed, as part of last year's budget. So, those situations certainly compound the staffing level for the department. With respect to making a determination as to at what point the balance of using overtime versus hiring was tipped, to be perfectly honest, we have not done that analysis. Certainly from a practical standpoint, the fact that we have had to resort to limited recall, I think is an indication of the fact that we have reached critical mass, and the fact that there is going to be an academy class that's going to be starting on Monday that is going to mitigate the problem long term. But certainly until such time as we're able to get those recruits out into the field, we're going to have to address
I think the fact that we're using recall so frequently, when it used to be a rare and extreme occurrence, and now we're using it on a regular basis, shows that we've reached not just critical mass, but chronic, continuous critical mass. So you individually don't know when we hit that tipping point, but we've clearly gone over that point. We are now clearly and deeply into a space where it is costing us more money to be using overtime as opposed to hiring.
Can I comment one other additional detail? Chief Deputy Darren Palacios, we are having unseasonably warm weather and Santa Ana conditions. There haven't been 4 or 5 days of Santa Ana conditions. We augment our staffing when we're red flag or extreme conditions. That means we're hiring up many more resources to put those resources in your district and everyone else's district. And when we do that, that's more hiring of overtime of hundreds of more firefighters, and that's making the problem worse.
Granted, but it's not as if we hit the tipping point 4 days ago. It's not because of Santa Ana winds over the past few days that we've gotten into the situation.
No, I'm not saying. I'm just saying the days that we hit them in October, the days we hit in November, the days we hit in December.
I'm trying to get a handle on how bad a problem this is and how extreme it is. The department knew in 2011 that folks were going to be enrolling in the DROP program. In fact, when this was being pitched to the council, folks were signing up in very large numbers for the DROP program. So the numbers that the council was getting weren't really reflecting accurately what was going to be happening in the department personnel-wise. Right now, I understand we have, or are about to have, 80 vacancies for Captain 1. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
I got a list, and this illustrates how extreme the problem is. Of those 80 vacancies, because of them, right now, there is no captain assigned permanently to Fire Station 4 in Little Tokyo, Fire Station 6 in Angelino Heights, Fire Station 10 in the South Park area near the Convention Center, Fire Station 12, Highland Park, Fire Station 13, Pico Union, Fire Station 34, Crenshaw, Fire Station 39, Van Nuys. 2 captains not assigned to 59 in my district in West LA, 2 captains not assigned to 62 Mar Vista in my district, no Captain 1 assigned in Venice, and no Captain 1 assigned to Fire Station 68 in Mid-City. Sure, folks can fill in on overtime at a significant cost, but they're not familiar with those neighborhoods. That's a huge problem, isn't it?
It can be.
If these 80 positions were filled, how many Captain 1s would we have?
In total number, I want to say we're somewhere in the 460.
460. So roughly one-fifth of our Captain 1s are vacant.
Yes.
Okay, and so those all have to be filled, right?
Yes, we're waiting for the list to be certified.
So what's that going to do? I mean, those are people who are going to be promoted up. What impact is that going to have on the vacancies that are then created otherwise in the rank and file?
Yeah, the engineer, apparatus operator, firefighter ranks will then be depleted.
So what I'm beginning to understand from all of this as I read the report and as I talk to people is that it's going to take us, our best case scenario of 5 recruitment classes is not going to gain us any yardage. It'll take at least that to bring us to where we should have been with the 2011 cuts.
I'm sorry, is that a question?
Is that correct?
Well, what we're estimating is that if we have 5 academy classes beginning next fiscal year, we'll be able to fill all of our vacancies by 15-16.
Okay. That's all I got for now. I may have a few more questions on it.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you. I think Mr. Bonin just outlined my concerns, articulated them very well that I share. I just have some comments. We recently had a string of fires that resulted in 6 fatalities. It's the driest year on record. There were 2 really terrible fires in my district the week before the Christmas holiday, which resulted in 2 fatalities. One of them right there in Echo Park around the corner from Fire Station 20, which has suffered among the greatest reduction in resources of any fire station, yet it's one of the busiest. I think the overall problem here is that if we're really, really lucky by next year, we will barely keep up with the attrition that we're not matching now. I also just want to say that I've done a lot of looking into this in terms of the reductions that some of the high fire zone areas have suffered. And I know that in the case of Northeast Los Angeles, affecting mostly council districts 1, 13, and 14, took 1/4 of all the resource reductions in 2011. That's always been a problem. It remains a problem. And I just wanted to point that out. We have firefighters. They're overtaxed. They're stressed. They're exhausted. I was at a fire station once, and the last remaining resource, there was a call. They left and they said, "Mitch, can you hold down the fort while we're gone?" I was the only individual holding down the fort while all the other resources were out either responding to a medical emergency or fighting a fire. And I know that in the case of approximately a year ago, maybe a little bit less, there were the really bad fires over at Mulholland near the Getty Center. Virtually all of the fire stations in the 13th District were over there responding to that emergency, which left the entire Northeast Los Angeles region completely vulnerable. So I just think we've been very, very fortunate. And I'm not, preaching or lecturing here. I'm just pointing out that we have a real issue, and we have, I think we have a very serious morale issue amongst the firefighters that I've observed personally when I've been out in the district. And I look forward to this being addressed. And I can't imagine a scenario wherein we go with less than 5 classes, even though it's going to cost more money. There's just nothing more important in this city than public safety. So I just wanted to mention my concerns. It's not even a question, just I want to put it out there.
I wanted to ask one more question. I actually wanted to ask it of Mr. Lima, if I could.
Red light.
What's that?
He's not on the agenda.
Okay. Mr. O'Farrell talked about the impact in terms of energy, alertness on the firefighters who are being constantly called in on recall for the overtime. I'm wondering if you could just give us some insight into how this is impacting the rank and file.
And if you could, just make it brief, since you were here as a public comment
Yes,
card.
I'll make it brief.
Want to make sure we
And
follow the rules.
To the point of the overtime, it's taken a big toll on our members. I mean, we've had 3 active firefighters die in good shape in the past, over September in the course of 1 month. And it's, our firefighters are compelled, forced to work up to 120 hours in a row, a day off, forced to work 72 hours in a row. And you know, the population's rising, the call load's rising, and our fire department's shrinking. And just to touch on the overtime with the brush real quick, with what Chief Palacio said, yeah, we do augment brush on high hazard days, and we always have. But the one fire in the Palisades during the recent augmentation, let's not kid ourselves here. The augmentation that the department does basically brings us back to the 2008 staffing levels that our fire department should be staffed at.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. There's no question that this is by far the biggest issue facing the department. It's been well documented in the media. It's been well documented by all the elected officials, by the department itself, that the fire department has been decimated over the years, that it's been burnt to the ground and not restored anywhere near where it needs to be. We know that with certainty. We knew and we know, and it's been well documented, not only independently by the city, but by the grand jury as well. We know where it came from. We knew that the data had a lot of issues. There's been special committees and reports that have been generated on looking at data, because it's a data-driven department, as with all of our departments, which are going towards that effort, that they're going to be looking at performance-based budgeting and looking at what those mean to ensure the right dollars are getting to the right places in the departments, the fire department, and our public safety departments, particularly the police department, which has a CompStat program that they track and look at everything with analytics and specialists and experts. We know full well that firefighters, and we have the best firefighters, bar none, in the country, because they do so much more with so much less and are spread so much more thin than any other department. And, you know, I had recently the experience where just in the last couple months went and visited a couple of our injured officers with Mr. Lima in the burn centers and met with them. They are truly remarkable people that do incredible things. The cross-training is spectacular. These are men and women that can do virtually anything. They're superheroes. But one of their expertise is just not crunching data. We've learned that. We've also, and I want to compliment the mayor, has made it a priority to make sure that the department has experts looking at not just creating Excel spreadsheets, but really tracking the true data in everything we're doing, and not just response times, but everything we're doing within the fire department. And that's the first thing we've got to do to ensure that we can restore it correctly and efficiently. And we don't just throw money on it, but we do it correctly and quickly and make it a priority. We've got to do that. So, you know, we know how we got here. We know that the city was sold a bill of goods. I don't believe in my heart that it was ever intentional. I do believe that we had people that just truly weren't the experts on that. I've got to compliment Alan Scobin, who has spent quite a bit of time on this, along with Chief Butler, who really has done a phenomenal job, who's now in charge of training, I believe. And the rest of the department has acknowledged, and it takes a lot to acknowledge, hey, we've got an issue. And it's not just the budget. It's the numbers and how we approach the budget and how we present that to the council and what specifically we ask for. But the issue before us today is extreme. And we've got to look at, and I think the report does a great job of articulating and sugarcoating the issue, because that's what it does. But we've also got to look at ways to get out of this quickly and what we can and can't do, and what's within our power. What do we have power over, what don't we? Well, we have funded the 2 drill towers that are going to be starting, but the report spells out the issues that have gone into, and significant issues. You can't just, it's not a light switch. There's a lot of technical changes. It's been down for some time, putting all the proper manuals together, the fact that you're utilizing technology now in the training with e-learning and all the other things that a lot of other departments are doing. Those capabilities weren't even there last time the drill tower was up. And so those are being brought forth. I think one of the things we need to look at is what else can we do. I think there's a couple things we could do immediately. And we should look at opportunities while we're expanding and rehiring. And so that started, and we have to continue that. And we have to make it a priority, which I know we all believe in. Those aren't the things to question. We can beat each other up, we can point fingers, or we can look to the future and saying, what do we do now? There's a couple things we need to do now. One, I would like to ask for the CAO to work with the fire department and the union to look at an opportunity perhaps, and I don't know that this has ever been asked for or looked at, and so we'd have to look at the financials, but for a short period of time that it would sunset, perhaps in 3 years or 5 years, to extend drop for 1 year just for the fire department. So we can keep people on for that period of time, that we're bringing the new recruits in, that we're doing the new training, that we're not losing personnel. What would the cost be on that? Is that something that's even feasible? And I don't know that that's ever even been looked at as a temporary emergency fix, where immediately we can extend that program for 1 year, but do it for a 3-year or 4-year period. So instead of a 5-year drop program, it could be a 6-year drop program, keeping those folks with the institutional knowledge and those experts and those superheroes on board as we continue to get those new folks in. And it might be, quite frankly, cheaper than the recall efforts as well as overtime, and a good investment and something we should look at. So I'm looking for that as a report back as soon as possible to work with the CAO and the CLA and the fire department, as well as Frank Lehman and his staff, to come back with a plan for that to see if that could work as one option. The second thing that I'd like to look at is to convene as soon as possible, and I'm happy to lead that effort. All of the local hospitals throughout the city of Los Angeles and any hospital we deliver patients to, with those executive staff, as well as the Hospital Association of Southern California, to look at wall time. We've got firefighters, paramedics sitting in hospitals for 2, 3, 4 hours. We've heard about the nightmare stories. And we've got to be able to pass patients on quicker and get them out and back in the field as quickly as possible. And so we've got to look at that partnership immediately. And so those are 2 things that I'd like to look at. I'd like to work with Frank, if you would be willing to help put that together as well, and with the department. And then the last thing is I'd like the fire chief, interim or not, to be here during these kinds of discussions and when this comes to council. This is by far one of the most important issues in the city of Los Angeles, period. And it is a crisis within the fire department that we've got to restore. We're all focused on that. We're all on the same page and looking forward to getting that done. Because it's one of the biggest issues, I'm disappointed the fire chief is not here today in discussing this. If this is the biggest issue facing the department, that person should be present. But I do compliment his staff, who is working tirelessly, both with my staff and along with the rest of the city family, in constant communication, letting us know exactly what's going on, and I do appreciate that. But I'd ask that a general manager of a department, when we're talking about the biggest issue facing that department, should be present. I'd ask that person be present when this comes to council. Anything to add?
I want to thank you, Mr. Chair, for your recommendations. Clearly, the only real long-term solution is hiring, and I appreciate your leadership in coming up with some recommendations that can provide some measure of relief in the interim. I'm particularly glad to see your recommendation on wall time, and I'm glad you're taking leadership on that. Anything I can do to help?
Love to have you there.
Absolutely. I just, sometimes we congratulate each other a lot as council members, but I really want to say I think we're in very good hands having you as chair of public safety.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
And I'll congratulate both of you.
Well, I don't.
For your leadership on this.
I think I don't know that congratulations. We're doing our job, and I look forward to the partnership. I think the fire department, quite frankly, everybody's on the same page. We all want to do the right thing for the city of Los Angeles. There's no question. And I want to, if there's anybody to thank at all, it's the men and women of the fire department, because they really do an incredible job. And while we hear about firefighters being injured and we hear about loss of life and structures, if you look at the history, even the immediate history, and what they're able to save, and that's not something we measure often here in Los Angeles. The police department does a great job of measuring crimes that didn't occur, if you will, how low crime is. And I'm hoping Firestat LA will bring some of that forth as well, with how many structures we save, how many lives are saved, the true untold heroes and that occurs. I'm glad there's a newsletter that comes out talking about that now, a regular e-news blast by the fire union, which is highlighting a lot of their efforts every day that they do, that people don't hear about. And so I want to compliment them. With that, I believe that we'll go ahead with those recommendations.
Mr. Chair, should we include the Chiefs Association as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that. So we'll go ahead and add the Chiefs Officers Association to both of those recommendations to work on looking at the drop as well as the extension, as well as looking at a wall time, whether that's a conference or a round table, putting that together as well. They should have a seat at the table for sure, and move this on to council without objection.
The report is also referred to the Personnel and Animal Welfare Committee, where it'll need to go to next before it goes to council.
Terrific. Great. Excellent. Thank you very much. If you can include those amendments, we'll go ahead and send it to personnel. Excellent. Thank you all for being here and for the discussion and the report. Appreciate it. That'll conclude the special committee. That adjourns that committee, brings us back to the regular committee. By the way, if anybody submitted cards after we took public comment, your cards will be noted that you were here and for the file. I do appreciate that very much. But we do ask cards. Cards have to be submitted prior to closing the public comment on those items. And that will conclude the Public Safety Committee. Thank you very much. Have a nice weekend. Be safe.